progress, you know. I
Yeah.
mean, it's like the kids school year pictures, you know, how little they were to begin with, how cute they are, and now look at these giant people.
Look at these awkward gangly things.
Yeah, so it is a good progress marker, if nothing else.
I like that. Yeah, absolutely. And I also know that a lot of my friends who started kind of slowly getting into gardening because I've been talking about it so much,
Hmm.
it's nice getting the chance to talk to people about it, whether it be other beginners or putting stuff out there to have someone with more experience say, hey, I see you're having this issue there. You know, it's probably this problem. Here's how you can fix it. The community possibility is
Absolutely.
really exciting.
Yep.
So, yeah, even if
I
I'm just sending it to you and my one friend, then I'm psyched about it.
Yeah, I feel the same. I mean, like you talked about, you know, YouTube graduate here. I mean, that's how I've learned a lot of things in life, but for sure, this is definitely, you don't realize the community that's out there until you start dabbling in these things as well. You know, there's a lot
Yes.
more people than will, I mean, you just don't always hear of a large portion of people saying, yeah, my garden this year. At least I don't in the
Yeah.
suburbs.
No, and I know that I've specifically looked in the Central Florida area to try and find everything from seed swaps and seed banks and other just kind of like farmers markets and stuff like that. And it can be really hard to find in my
Yeah.
particular area. So yay for the internet.
Right. I agree.
So I think with that in particular, like I in Florida have my specific things that I've got to deal with within gardening. And part of that is yeah, there's kind of a lack of community because not a whole lot of people probably want to garden out in the blazing hot heat of Florida. So I've got humidity like crazy,
Mhm.
really, really intense heat during the summer times. Let's be honest, most of the time. And I also do not really have much of a winter, so I don't really have that season where all the pests die off.
Mhm.
They're pretty consistent.
Right.
They might back off a bit during December and January and then come ramping right back up as soon as the temperatures rise. But I've got that issue, and so watering is always hard because it always seems like it just slips right through the soil as quickly as you put it in. So I know that for me in particular, I've got my stuff to have to work on. How do I work around those problems?
Yeah.
So Tennessee, how does that treat you?
So Tennessee is rich in clay, as is Georgia, but I feel like I haven't mastered clay. I haven't figured out how to direct sow into the ground. A large portion of how I garden has always been in the idea of raised beds. Whether I had, you know, 12 feet or 1,200 acres, I'd probably still garden in raised beds. That'd be a lot of raised beds, right? But I feel like
Mhm.
I really do. I don't know that I've spent enough time around local farmers because while I know that the commercial farmers are there, organic farming is really hard to come by in those specific areas because you're overcrowded with these commercial farmers and high yields of like soybean and
Mhm.
huge GMO crops where your average gardener, I just haven't come across much of it to know how to deal with clay. So I feel like for me specifically, I'd much rather control my soil um, to be able to do that effectively in raised beds is really about the only way I know how to do that. And specifically here right now in the end of April, beginning of May, we're dealing with a lot of rain. That's another thing where with clay, you're dealing with either too much moisture that plant molds and mildews or so little moisture because it's like concrete. So there's not enough drainage in clay, even with, you know, some rocks or mulch tilled into that. So I, I have learned that for me, until I can figure out what else to do with clay, or if my specific yard, wherever we end up, in the future years, is better soil, it's probably just going to be raised beds because I don't have the option of um, spending a lot of time hand tilling because I don't have a hand. I don't have a regular tiller. That's a
I
big
think
old machinery.
yeah, I think I like raised beds because I like the organization of it. Even if I
Yeah.
had the most amazing fertile soil you've ever had, I would like it purely because I enjoy how sectioned off it feels. It
Mm,
feels safer and more accessible, and I just love it. I don't
yeah.
know.
And you can
So
make it pretty.
yes, it's so pretty.
Yes.
So, so pretty. And I don't really do a lot of gardening for the sake of pretty. It's mostly functional stuff. So raised beds are exactly where I want to be. So there you go. In the future, hopefully the near future, I would love to start into some raised beds.
Yeah.
And I know that that would also make me feel like the more investment you put into it, you kind of feel like you can keep moving forward going, I'm not going to waste all this time I just spent on this, or all this money and this energy, all
Right.
the days you spent out in the sun. It would motivate me more to go out and work hard at it to make it useful.
Right.
Because right now, I really don't eat organically. I eat whatever is cheapest. Thank you very much.
Right.
And I'm trying to eat more vegetables. I'm trying to be more like eating more whole food kind of concepts in general. But whatever I pull out of my garden is the only organic food that I have in my life. So ideally, I would get to a point where I'm growing as much of my produce as I need. I would love to get to the day when I rarely visit a produce aisle or
Mm.
anything like that. So with what I have right now, I can maybe start introducing a little bit more of that structured gardening
Mhm.
instead of my containers that I have right now. But big picture, I would like to get to that point where I'm doing a lot of self-sufficient gardening and maybe have a chicken or two. Who knows?
Yeah, some eggs. Hey, even meat, chickens, who knows?
Right? Anything.
Yeah.
Um, Now, how do you feel about uh, what you could be doing with your garden? What are your goals for?
My goals for right now is just seeing as much as I can grow today. In a rented space, I am pretty limited in what I'm willing to do. Not because of particulars on the house, but I'm just not going to put that much effort into a place that I know is not going to be ours.
Right.
Um, Eventually, I'd love to have a couple of acres to be able to really set down and homestead off of, have some chickens and maybe a goat to watch because they're fun. But
Yeah.
and lots of raised beds because again, I'm still in Tennessee. I'm not going anywhere.
Mhm.
And being able to kind of plan out what I plant um, in raised beds, knowing that I have the space to plant whatever I want. So that would be my end goal. And again, I like what you said about being able to afford organic really has to do with what I can grow. Um, because well, there's a lot of bureaucracy behind the organic world and who gets to claim that title. But
Mm.
regardless of that, I can grow organically. So I'd much rather do that. Plus, you have the reward. Like uh, it's we've talked about before. It's just that soul enriching. I grew this. It's going to be
Mhm.
so much better because I grew this.
Yeah, the well-earned kind of thing.
So well earned, yes. And you have babied that thing from seedling all the way up to actual ripe fruit. So
Mhm.
I'm very excited about that. So that's kind of my goals. Um, I don't know. What do you think?
I like that. I also think, speaking of babies, it's a great opportunity for you to start introducing gardening on a very practical level
Hmm.
to your kids. And I totally was not much of a vegetable eater growing up. And I've slowly gotten more accustomed
You
to
mean the rabbit food?
the rabbit food. It was a big deal for me to start, like tomatoes. I didn't eat
Mm-hmm.
tomatoes, but then I started growing them because they were just so satisfying to grow. And
Right.
suddenly, yeah, I could go for a tomato right now. I'll pull one right off the plant and eat it right here in the garden type of thing.
Right. Yep.
And
I
yeah,
think that's kind of one of the most rewarding parts about gardening is passing on that knowledge to the kids for sure. And I feel like as a parent, my job is to enrich their lives with tools for the future. And this is just right up that alley of being able to give them some tools to not only be self-sustainable, but also just know, God forbid, the worst case scenario happen. But if nothing else, for enjoyment, you know,
right.
they can
Absolutely.
totally grow a tomato plant and know they're going to have a tomato sandwich today.
Right, exactly. And I do think it's interesting that we're picking this up in the midst of a lot of just uncertainty and unrest with
Mm,
coronavirus going around, where you're
yeah,
going, I think it would be smart for me to be able to know how to do this fairly well.
I think there's a lot of people that are doing that right now, but yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Start your victory garden, y'all.
That's right. Mm.
But yeah, I hope that anybody watching has enjoyed this and learned a little something. Check us out if we've got any future videos coming up, and thank you for spending some time with us.
See you later.
Bye.